Okay, okay. I think we are
10.
on air. 5 seconds. Yeah. Now we are on air, man. Right? Here we are on air.
Yes,
Second
yes, yes,
episode
yes.
of Shop
Here we
Pedagógico this
are.
year. Yes.
Yes, the second episode. So, how are you doing? How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I actually wanted to say something that I don't know if people noticed, but we have new cameras.
Do we
So
look any different? If you guys think
if
that
we
we
look
look
uglier,
different,
that means it's higher res, okay?
yeah,
Higher,
because from now on, Shop Pedagógico is in 4K, guys. 4K.
yes.
Yeah, so you're
Cool,
going
huh?
to see all our imperfections. I mean, not, our physical
Well,
imperfections now, not our
of course.
psychological imperfections, because
Yeah,
they already know that we are
well,
completely
I'm
crazy.
glad they're not going to see our
Now they're
psychological
going to see our
imperfections.
physical imperfections.
Oh, yes, bro.
So yes, so today is Sunday, February 23,
Yes,
2025, the second episode of Shop Pedagógico of the year.
that's awesome.
Wow.
And you
Wow.
know what? I just wanted to remind everyone watching us, and maybe if you're new to this channel, to this podcast, this is a podcast that we created 6 years ago almost. And it's about linguistics and neuroscience. And then Rudy and I, André, we drink tea and we talk about very crazy things, but also very interesting, academic, and I would say somewhat philosophical things too, right, Rudy? Yeah.
Yeah, we go
Yeah.
nuts on several stuff.
Mm.
And if this is your first time here with us, welcome to Chá Pedagógico. Andres said it. This is the podcast. If you guys really like linguistics, neuroscience,
Yeah.
discussions on cognition, discussion on education, because we also talk about education in the podcast, and we
Yeah.
also talk about geek stuff. So this is the right place for
Definitely.
all these subjects. We put them in the blender, and then we make a very delicious and cold smoothie because it's super hot. If it's super hot here in Campinas, I can imagine what the weather is like there, dude.
Bro, you have no idea. People were not meant to live in this place,
Yeah.
but but still, yeah. And there's climate change too, so it's getting worse, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we have amazing,
Yeah.
amazing news for you guys. Okay. So, first
Yeah,
of
we
all,
do.
if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is really important because the bigger the
Yeah.
channel is, the more people are going to watch us, and then the YouTube's algorithm is going to do their job. So, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And
Exactly.
don't forget to every episode, because Chá Pedagógico, we're streaming live every last Sunday of the month. I know this is not the last Sunday of the month, but next Sunday we're going to have Carnival. That's why we're having Chá Pedagógico this Sunday, a Sunday
But
before.
actually, it is. If you think about it, it's February, so next Sunday is
That's right.
March 2nd or something
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So
right.
this is yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, yeah,
Well
yeah.
thought. And don't forget, if you're watching this episode right now, you're going to see that there's little bell icon. If you click there, you're going to receive a notification every time we're streaming live. There's a
Yeah.
new Chá Pedagógico episode coming. And don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you really like this episode. Don't forget to like the episode, because this is also going to show the algorithm that we're doing a very nice job. And then the algorithm, YouTube's algorithm, is going to
Yeah.
boost the episodes, and then more people are going to watch us. So this is going to help us
Yeah.
a lot,
And,
reach
and you
more,
know what?
people.
Definitely. And you know what? Just today, we don't want you to be on your phones, folks. I don't know if you're watching us through your phones, because we're going to
Yeah.
talk about the algorithms too, right? But just
Yes.
today, maybe you can watch us on your laptop, okay? But yeah, it doesn't
Yes.
matter if you're on your
And there's
phones,
also
watch.
something
Yeah,
I said, there's something
yeah,
new, something very
yeah,
special, because from now on, if you guys want to purchase any book on Gisal's YouTube channel, on
yes,
Gisal's website, on Gisal's website,
yeah.
all you got to do is use the promo code SHA25,
Shot
CHA
25.
25, SHA25, and
Exactly.
you are going to get 25% off during the checkout. That's all
Yes.
you got to do. All you got to do. So you go to, if you've ever been to Giselle's website, you already know that they have a lot of titles there,
Oh
amazing
yes.
books there.
Amazing.
So all
Yeah.
you got to do is type during the checkout, you're going to type SHA25,
Yeah.
CHA 25, SHA25. And then you're going to get 25% off of your purchases there
Yeah.
on Giselle's website.
But you might want to wait before you move to Disal's website, because
Yeah.
at the end of this episode, we have something new coming for you guys. We're going to
Yes.
tell you about two amazing books we used for our research to do
Yes.
this episode that both Rudy and I agree that every educator, every parent, every family member, every school manager should have these books, because they are very important books about
Mhm.
social media influencing kids, phones, how we develop certain addictions. So you have to buy these books. So wait till the end of the episode so we can tell you more about them. Okay.
Exactly. And if you guys are watching us through your phones, yeah, you're not going to be banned today, but
Yeah.
this little guy here, this
Yeah.
little guy's been kind of like the enemy of the educational system, not only here in Brazil, but many places here in the world. And here in Brazil,
definitely.
we have a national law that's banning phones from schools. You've heard of it. We've talked about this, not in depth, not like what we're going to do now, but we talked about this in some events that happened some weeks ago.
At the Cultura Inglesa Teachers Conference, for example.
Yes, we were there. We were talking about this. And there's a very nice poll also here in the chat box. So please, guys, don't forget to use the chat box to interact with us. And there is no right or wrong. Every time we have a poll here, it's just so we understand what you feel about certain topics. And in this case, there's no law. So with phones banned in schools, from schools, what do you guys think is going to happen? Students will focus more. Second option, students will learn the same.
Yep.
Option 3, schools lost a tool. Maybe. Is this what you feel? And the last option is parents will freak out. So we have these 4 options. Don't forget to interact with us here in the chat box and also here. So we have these 4 options. We don't have a right or wrong. We just want to know what you're feeling about this new law. And dude, this new law is, I would say, it's groundbreaking. Groundbreaking.
It is. Yeah.
It's groundbreaking, right?
Yeah. It is, but at the same time, I think as usual, right? So whenever there's a new law and we have to adapt to the new law, we've been talking about the bilingual education regulation for what? 5 years now, and it hasn't really changed that much because, that's how things usually go here in Brazil. But this law has sort of made some people aware that there is a problem. Yes, that's important, but also has made some people very anxious and nervous for what's coming because, they have to make a decision. How can they make that transition as smoothly as possible so that kids and teenagers are not left neglected? Or if, I think the biggest issue here at hand is how can we help kids adapt to a new reality that they are not going to have their phones with them throughout the whole course inside their schools, because we are all addicted and kids even more. So we have to be careful. But you know what, Rudy, we talked about this. Yes, it's a good law. I think it's a good law.
It's a very interesting. I celebrated the law as well. Yeah. Is it a perfect law? Of course, it's not a perfect law, but it's a first step. It's only the first one. There's of course this law is going to be improved. Hopefully, it's going to be improved. It's going to be revised. Maybe 20 years from now, we're going to see the 20th version of this law full of new paragraphs and stuff.
That's true.
And then we're going to look back and we're going to say, look, remember 20 years ago when this law started? Look how this law is now. How the law has improved through the years. But the first thing, you mentioned something very interesting about reality. And I don't know about you guys, but this little guy here, and when I think one thing before we go into this reality stuff, I think it's important to make very clear here. When we say that this guy is a problem, it's not the device, it's not the hardware. Okay. We're not talking about hardware.
Yeah.
We're talking about the apps, the software. Okay. Why? Because
Yeah.
basically everything, every app, every software, every whatever is inside this little guy here, or phones. Okay. And normally, what we have that catches everyone's attention now inside our phones, social media,
Exactly.
regardless of the social of your favorite social media. But we have social media. Social media's
Yeah.
been, I don't know if you guys have the feature of your phone that tells you at the end of the week. Normally the phones tell you the amount of hours that you spent on social media.
And it's scary.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you I'm going to say that maybe
Yeah.
80% of us, we're
Yeah.
going to have social media number one at the end of the week.
Mm.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why? Why social media? Because in social media, we live in a different reality. We
Yeah.
create a different reality, a reality that's comfortable for us because this is an escape. It's
Exactly.
escape, you
Yeah.
know? So, first of all, when we adults, we get into the bubble and we feel very comfortable.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how teenagers and even kids are going to feel once they are in their bubble? And I'm not just now. I'm not just talking about socials. I'm talking about games as well. If we
Exactly.
consider kids,
Yeah.
maybe they're not going to have social media. Hopefully, they're not going to get social media.
They
Okay, guys.
shouldn't.
Hopefully, they shouldn't.
They
Okay,
shouldn't. Come on. Yeah.
not a very good. Actually, it's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
Very
Yes.
bad idea. Okay,
Yeah.
so for kids, we're talking about games. For
Yeah.
teenagers, well, unfortunately, yes, they have several social medias at hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a reality. It's a reality that's going to make them feel comfortable. It's escape. It's escape.
It is.
It's a place where they go to and they're going to be like, okay,
Yeah.
I am taller here. I am stronger here. People
Yeah.
respect me here.
Exactly.
But that's not true.
It's about belonging, right?
But
Yeah.
it's not true because
Yeah.
when we think about classroom, when we think about schools, it's reality, real reality, actual
Yes.
reality.
And real reality is tough, right, Rudy? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah. And I wanted to mention something that we discussed that I think is pertinent because there are so many novels and TV series and movies and art in general exploring this divide, right, between reality and then a different life, an ideal life or whatever. And the latest one we talked about that has something to do with this is Severance on Apple TV, right?
Yeah.
So I think everybody kind of wants to separate their lives, whether
Yes.
it's their academic lives and professional lives, and then of course personal lives. But we want to have different memories, or we want to feel different in different aspects or places of our lives. And again, this can be very problematic from a social and emotional learning perspective, from a cognitive perspective as well, because you can't really separate things that well. Everything is happening at the same time in your brain. You can't really say, okay, from now on, I don't want to remember what happened here. From now on, I don't want to feel how I feel in my real life because I want to feel, like you said, taller, better looking, smarter. Well, that doesn't happen. So it's escape. It's an escape, really.
Yeah.
The thing is, we have to help those kids and teenagers, and even us adults,
Yeah.
accept the reality of who we are, how we behave in certain environments, and remember that we cannot really suppress those things and just embrace a different version of ourselves. It doesn't really work like that, right, Rudy?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that. So we have some guys watching us. So if you guys are into this TV show called Severance,
Severance. Very cool.
in Portuguese is Ruptura.
Exactly.
Ruptura in Portuguese. In
Yeah.
English is Severance. Come on, interact with us here in the chat box. We want to know if you guys follow this this TV show, if you like this TV show, and what you like about this TV show. If you understand, if you have the same perspective as we do of people separating real life from fantasy. Well, no,
Mm,
this is in this case
yeah,
not fantasy, but like, oh no, this is work. This is my life.
exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
uh, do you have the same perspective? So you can use the chat box here to interact with us. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you mentioned that, because even though, do you have Hannibal with you? Is it there?
I
Because I do
do,
not.
of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. Because
Hannibal,
I have
see your
my
head. Take a
yes,
look.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if you guys have ever watched us, or if you guys have ever participating in our lectures, or
Yeah.
even in our classes at the university, you know that when we talk about the brain, we show you areas of the brain,
Yes.
because yes, we do have a lot of areas. We have several areas, but
Exactly.
but you know, uh, can we separate them? I mean,
Yeah.
can we just deliberately say, I'm going to
Yeah.
use my frontal lobe right now, and only my frontal lobe? I don't want to use
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
temporal lobe right now, only my frontal
Exactly.
lobe. Can we
Yeah.
deliberately do that on
No.
command? No, we
No.
can't. It's all
And
mixed up.
there was, I think, the biggest, well, one of the biggest misconceptions in neuroscience happened because people wanted to isolate different structures. It was something called a triune brain that was designed by Paul MacLean a couple of decades ago. Even Carl Sagan, a guy who I
Mhm.
admire a lot, uh, refer to his work because at the time it was very popular in the 1980s and everything. Even today, some people refer to it. They talk about three different parts of the brain, or combinations of
Yeah.
structures that have different types of functions. So normally we talk about the reptilian brain that has something to do with the brainstem, which has very important regulatory functions. It keeps you breathing, it keeps your heartbeat, regulates sleep and things like that. And that's part of what this guy called the reptilian brain. Because, according to Paul MacLean, reptiles are not as evolved as mammals, right? So basically, this also has a lot to do with aggression, the fight and flight, response, and all of that. But if you have a mammalian brain, and then there are other structures that we call the limbic system, they have to do with your emotional response.
But dude,
And then
once again,
finally,
I'm sorry, but once again,
yeah,
this is what they came up with several decades ago. Okay.
exactly. And
Several
even
decades
today,
ago.
yeah, even today, people are of course, we have to isolate different parts of the brain to study them, but in practice, the brain doesn't work like that. The brain is completely super hyper interconnected, and then so you have the reptilian, the mammalian brain, and then the primate, the human brain, right? The cortex and the most modern parts of the brain. But still, all of those things are working in synchrony.
Yeah.
There's no way you can separate and say isolate this. Like Rudy said, you can't command your brain to just use this part. You can command your brain to just release this neurotransmitter. Well, I don't want to release dopamine today. Yeah, it's not going to work. Your brain is going to release dopamine. Yeah, you can't do that, right? It's not like because people talk a lot about fasting, right? If you say, hey, I'm not going to eat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
eat carbs this morning. Okay, you can do that. You can make that decision. But if you want to fast dopamine, you can't. A lot of people use this dopamine fasting, whatever. Like, well, I'm just not going to do stuff that will release dopamine. Well, everything releases dopamine, basically. You can't fast dopamine.
I mean, if you receive a message from your
Yeah.
crush, you are going to release dopamine.
Yes. Yeah. Even if you wake up, you have dopamine release because your brain needs, that feeling of I want to go do something,
Yeah.
to get to homeostasis. And so there's no way you can simply decide not to release dopamine or
Yeah.
any other
Forget
neurotransmitter,
it.
right?
Forget it.
Yeah.
So the same way
Yeah.
we have a hyperconnectivity in the brain. I wouldn't even say hyperconnectivity. Is there a better word for hyper? Uber, maybe? Uber
Uber,
connected?
yes, Uber. It's super
Maybe?
connected for sure. Yeah.
Uber connected?
Yeah.
Because we are saying this because right now, what we are having is
Yeah.
also a an Uber connectivity between reality, actual
Yeah.
reality,
Yeah.
and I don't want to use virtual reality, but the reality that we have in our phones.
Exactly.
It's super connected nowadays. This is something we can't separate. This is something, and we have to. This is one of the reasons why I think we think this law is super important because
Yeah.
it's going to put us back on earth. It's going to put
Yeah.
our students back on earth.
Yeah.
Keep it real. Let's keep it real. You know, and
Yeah.
one of the things that we also discussed was about because when remember the bubble, fantasy, everything's perfect. I'm taller, I'm stronger, I'm more beautiful, whatever, blah, 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 in my social media or in the bubble that I have in my phone, regardless
Or
of
the game,
the
your
game,
avatar, right? If
your
you're playing a
avatar,
game,
or
exactly.
you
Yeah.
feel empowered because you're very good
Yeah.
at the game you're playing. You don't even have to have an avatar, but if you're very good, you're
Yeah.
going to feel empowered, whatever, you know. So you're going to feel good about this.
Yeah.
Once you you're you don't have access to this anymore. Once your students don't have access to that anymore, they are going to come back to the reality.
Yeah.
And the first thing we're going to see is students being super, super angry.
Yeah.
Super angry.
Most definitely. Yeah.
They are going to be. They are. Why? Because they are going to feel like, I don't have whatever made me feel good anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have that. They're going to be cranky, like many of us early in the morning before you drink your coffee. I don't drink coffee.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I
it
drink
feels like.
coffee. Yeah.
So I know my wife
Yeah.
does drink coffee.
Yeah.
So she says, before I drink coffee, I'm not a human being. So it's pretty much
Yeah.
like
Pretty
this.
much feels like that.
Your
Yeah.
students are going to feel exactly like you feel
Yeah.
before your first sip of coffee, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were talking about this in many channels, right, Andre?
Yeah.
Because they've asked us, is this going to pass? Or are they going to be like this forever?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is going to pass, guys.
Yeah. It's like abstinence, right? Rudy?
Exactly.
Because addiction works like that. After a while, your body usually goes back to normal. It's never normal because there are physiological changes in your brain when you become addicted to something.
Yeah.
Because you create new pathways and your brain will always crave that thing because it gives you a sensation of pleasure. And that's dopamine comes in before that, right? Before the pleasure hits, dopamine comes in as something that guides you or takes you to the pleasure, to the reward, basically. Yeah. And when you taste something and when you do something for the first time that brings you a lot of pleasure, then that's going to be recorded in your brain, and your brain is going to remember that. And then those connections will always be there. That's why when we are addicted and suddenly we have to stop, it's very hard for us to actually continue the process, So the abstinence is always hard because your brain is craving that. You want that. But then after a while, you go back to homeostasis. You can kind of self-regulate. You don't need that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have just one contact, like one moment of contact with whatever you were addicted to,
you go back to ground
relapse. You might go back to it again. That's why it's very important for alcoholics and smokers and people who do heavy drugs. It's very important for them to stay away for a very long time, as much as possible, because it's hard to control the urge when it comes. When you live without it, okay, you can control it, but it takes just one slip for you to go back because your brain still has all of those connections,
Exactly. And you can have the triggers. Many people say that many people who used to smoke, when they stop smoking, they say that coffee is one of the triggers, because when people drink coffee, then we're going to talk about the mind, but the mind sends you back to when you used to smoke, because maybe when you smoked, you drank coffee, and then your body still feels like, okay, so if I'm having this, I know that I'm having this product, I'm drinking this product. Your body is going to be like waiting for the other product, which is the cigarette, for example.
Exactly.
And then your body is going to start producing this crave for, where is the cigarette? I need a cigarette, So we have these triggers. Our students are going to have triggers as well, I don't know what they're
Most
going to be. I would suggest maybe in the very, very beginning, I would suggest not use games in the very beginning. Maybe this can be a trigger. This can be a trigger, and then your students are going to feel really, really bad. And their level of attention is going to be super low. And this is the cue for us to start talking about attention, because this is the most crucial part of this episode today,
Most definitely.
attention, But the thing is, it will pass, because that's what Andres said. Our body is going to get used to that. Our body gets used to basically, I would say, almost everything.
Yeah.
When you start working out, it's hard. It's difficult. You go back home sore with sore muscles. And then after a week or two, your body adapts.
Exactly.
When you're used to, I don't know, when you're used to eating something and then you stop eating that thing, the very first week, for a week or two, you're going to feel this urge to eat whatever you used to eat, and then it goes away. It's going to be the same with students. So teachers, again, brace yourselves. We are going to have dark times ahead. They'll pass. Okay? They'll pass.
Yes. It takes
like
time.
George Harrison. Harrison has a song, All Things Must Pass. Yes, this will pass as well. This will pass as well. This is a great song, by the way.
This too shall pass, right?
No, this is All Things Must Pass. Man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. He says, right? Exactly.
He says, sunrise doesn't last all day. If sunrise doesn't last all day, why do you think this is going to last for a long time? So we won't. But again, guys, brace yourselves. In most, I would say, very extremely important, talk to the school and the parents. Talk to the school and the parents, because they have to be your backup. They have. It's mandatory that they be a backup for you guys.
And Rudy,
I think get over this moment.
Yeah. People are not, or have not realized that we talked about this before, like Rudy mentioned, but having a phone with you, either when you're not doing anything or when you're doing something with the phone, but just having the phone there with you, there are studies showing that we cannot concentrate as well because the phone is right there. So your brain is looking for that notification, right?
Yeah.
Again, there's dopamine, there are other neurotransmitters, because your phone is right there. And that at any moment, maybe somebody's going to send you a message. Maybe you're going to get that like, for that post you posted a couple of days ago. Maybe somebody's going to send you a direct message about something. So even when you're not doing anything, when you're not touching your phone, if it's in the same room as you, there is compelling evidence showing that you have fragmented attention. And that's the big villain here. When you are on the phone, that's even worse, because if you're on the phone and then somebody's talking, the teacher is explaining, then there's no way you can listen to the teacher and read your notifications at the same time. If you have a post, somebody has just posted something, and then your teacher is talking, there is a channel in our working memory system called the phonological loop that deals with language, whether it's spoken language or text, So if somebody's talking at you and you're trying to read a text at the same time somebody's talking, you cannot understand anything.
Forget it.
What you can do is you can switch your attention back and forth, and you can get a little bit of the speech, you can get a little bit of the text, but then you will not learn either very effectively because your attention has been fragmented. So it's not that we are saying, we're not the bad guys here, folks, telling you to, hey, get the phones off your kids and put them away. Don't let them use the phones. What we are saying is based on the evidence that is coming out, and there's more and more evidence coming out every year.
Yeah.
Phones especially smartphones, of course, with internet access to social media, with notifications all the time, with games, they divert your kids' attention.
Yes.
And attention is that commodity that Rudy was talking about. That without attention, there's no memory and there's no learning, and that's it.
Exactly.
As
And before
plain
we
as
get
that.
into that,
Yeah.
we have Beatriz. Beatriz is a very good friend of mine. Hi, Bea. Thanks for joining us.
Ah,
And she
cool.
said, this is a great opportunity for us to teach them digital literacy.
Yes.
Yes. Is it? Let me ask, let me tell you something
Yeah.
here, Bea. Um, do they really need their phones to become critical, to be critical? No.
No.
They don't.
No.
Because being critical is all about being selective, is all about making meaning. And this
Exactly.
is a cognitive activity, meaning that they can do that regardless of the tool. If I can help our students achieve critical thinking out of this, rubber brain that I have
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
stress ball, just relieve my stress. Um, that's fine. They don't need their phones with them in the classroom so they
Yeah.
can become digital literate.
Literate. Yeah.
They don't
That's true.
need that, especially because this is going to be a distraction for them.
Yes.
They are, I'm sure the moment they get their phones, look, your students, their phones are going to be in a box for,
Yeah.
let's say, 30 minutes. And you're going to do whatever you got to do in the classroom. And then after 30 minutes, you say, okay, guys, now you can go there to the box and you can get your phones because we're going to use them.
Yeah.
Do you really, really think that they are going to follow your instructions? No. The first thing they'll do is maybe check their WhatsApp, check their socials,
Yeah.
go to the game, see if everything that they were doing before they had to deliver
Yes.
to hand out their phones is it still there?
Yeah.
You know,
And
so
let me.
and again,
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, and she just added something. But when we just forbid them, what are we teaching? But here's the thing, Bia, and this is really coming from evidence. Okay, we have never had such a horrible mental health crisis.
Mhm.
We've never had such an increase, actually a decrease in IQ levels as before. And those two are connected to the unlimited, unrestricted use of phones. And this is not us saying, this is real, big researchers,
Yeah.
neuroscientists, psychologists saying, because here's the thing. We have to teach them critical thinking. Yes, we do, but they are developing their prefrontal cortex, so they cannot inhibit their behaviors as much as we would like, So even if you say, hey, we have to teach them how to responsibly use their phones, they're kids or teenagers, they're not
They won't.
responsible.
They won't.
Of course, we have to teach them, but they're still maturing that part of the brain. And there's the second thing. Critical thinking is based on prior knowledge. A lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Prior knowledge is only acquired if you really learn the stuff, not if you research the stuff, but if you really learn, if you consolidate that
The
inside your brain.
information.
Now, if you go to Wikipedia or Google to do research about whatever, because, that's critical thinking, sure. When you do that, if that is new information for you, that will fill up your working memory. If it fills up your working memory,
it's going
there's
to
no more space. Overload, right? There's no more space for critical thinking. That's physiological. And that's what's happening. We are delegating all of the knowledge to, research tools, right? Instead of actually consolidating those things inside our kids' brains and
it is going to evaporate.
Exactly.
It's not going to last. That information is not, in simple terms, it's not going to stick.
Exactly.
It's not going to stay. If it's in the working memory, it's not going to stick.
That's why fake news is at a high nowadays, because you know what? Unfortunately, kids, they don't have the necessary prior knowledge to distinguish between what's real and what's fake news, because they have to do research all the time. When they do research, they're led to the websites that want them to believe certain things that are not true.
And in order
You know?
to have our students get to the critical thinking level, we don't need phones. We don't need anything like that. I don't know. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we um
I
we
love
have
the
pretty
questions,
much.
Bia. Keep
Yeah. No,
coming.
she is great. No, seriously,
Yes, keep them
she is
coming.
the best. She is the
Yes,
best.
yeah.
But the thing is, we are pretty much the same age. So we both are 21 years old. Okay, Bia. So
Yes, of course.
do you
We
remember
can
how?
legally drink in the US now.
Because we're 21.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
how was our generation taught critical thinking? We didn't have phones. We had
Yeah.
encyclopedia maybe. I'm talking about tools. I'm not talking about the approach, and then I'm not talking. We're not talking about methodology. We're not talking about this. We're talking
Yeah.
about tools, because this little guy here,
Yeah.
this little guy here is just a tool. So we don't need this tool in order to make our students digitally literate.
Yeah.
We definitely don't.
Yeah.
Okay. And we were saying it's going to catch our students' attention. This is a problem.
Yeah.
Andre just said we need attention in order to have some sort of learning. We said that before in a previous episode, or actually in previous episodes, plural.
We always say that.
We always say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
This and
it's
mug.
that important. Yeah.
This and mug. This
Yeah.
and mug.
Yes.
We need effort as well. Blah 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 blah. Very nice. Good. Great. But we need attention, regardless of the type of attention that we talk about here. We have several types of attention. We have sustained attention. We have joint attention. We have
Focused attention.
focused
like,
attention. We have that. Well, not the case here. Okay. Why do we need attention? Because once we have attention, once we have the attention, that message, whatever message that's being spread there, is going to reach your brains, and then we're going to decode, we're going to analyze, we are going to make meaning of that, and then
Yes.
once we come with a conclusion, we are going to store that conclusion in our mental space, meaning that we have knowledge, we have prior, that will become prior knowledge.
Exactly.
We have knowledge, and a second later, this is going to be consequently prior knowledge. If we remove attention from this equation, forget it.
Yep.
Forget it.
There's no
We're
learning.
not going to have. They're not going to learn language. They're not going to learn math. They're not going to learn geography, chemistry, even though chemistry is impossible to learn. It's impossible.
I actually like chemistry, but yeah, I didn't have the
Biology
best
too, man.
grades. Yeah. Yeah.
It's impossible to learn biology, man. It's really, really. And I paid attention ish
Yes.
when I was in school. Ish.
Well, yeah, yeah. I actually loved biology. I think my problem was chemistry was more complicated for me.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Nah, forget it. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's impossible. It's impossible. But what we were saying is we are going to have issues with that.
Yeah.
And we as teachers, now that you know that attention is crucial for learning, we also have to, and now I would like to talk a little bit more about the types of attention. Because now that we know that, we have to bear in mind that we need to extract, or we need to explore, forget about extract. We need to explore the correct attention if you want to achieve a determined result. For instance, everybody says that, or many teachers, not everybody, forget about that. Many teachers say that students need to sit down and pay attention 100% of the time. This is sustained attention. I don't think this is going to be very effective depending on the outcome you want. Why? It requires a lot of energy, because it's as if our brains are fully active all the time. First, impossible. This is not going to happen. It's not going to, especially as André was saying, they don't have the control yet. They cannot control this. Kids They are not
Anything
going to
else
control
can
at all.
divert their attentions, you know?
Kids are
Yeah.
not going to control that at all.
Yeah.
And teenagers are not going to control that at all. And
We
some
have trouble
adults,
controlling that. Imagine kids and teenager, right?
yeah, you know,
We hear a sound on the outside, we go like, okay, my attention goes there, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Imagine
And this can
kids.
cause,
Yeah.
and if we force that, this can cause cognitive overload. And what is a cognitive overload? It's pretty much our brain shutting down, saying, I'm not going to pay attention to anything anymore. Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm done. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's when our students are actually going to miss their phones. They're going to be like,
Yes.
where's my phone? Where's my phone?
When they
And
get
then it can
bored
lead to
or when they feel
anxiety.
exactly.
You know, it's a big problem, man. It's a big
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, and you know the thing you were talking about different types of attention, and if you think about focused attention, which is required, because then you know something catches our attention, so there's a sense of alertness.
Yeah.
I need to pay attention there, and then you have to allocate focus to whatever stimulus, you know, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's phonological, if it's your teacher talking, or if you're watching a video, or if there's an image or whatever. Here's the thing, and I think maybe we can answer Bia's question here. Is it worth keeping this thing here inside the classroom to teach them about digital literacy and whatever, if there is so much evidence, like robust evidence, showing that this is the main cause of diverted attention in the classroom? Because we are living in exponential times. You know, we have a lot of stimuli all over the place. And this is the thing, the cell phone is the thing that students can use to access whatever they want.
Yeah.
And if your brain is not trained or it doesn't have the physiological capacity to inhibit certain impulses, because, you know, your prefrontal cortex is still developing, anytime something becomes a little bit boring, a little bit more boring than it should be, because we imagine, you know, Rudy in the chemistry lesson, or me, if we had the phone on us, we have to pay attention to this teacher trying to explain something. But you know what? If I had an escape, if I had something else to do, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Because that's the dopamine kicking in and saying, you don't want this, this is not interesting, you want something else. Whatever else pops up, I'll go for it, you know? And that's what the phone does.
That's why many students ask if they can go to the restroom. Can I go to the restroom? Several times. Because that's their escape.
Some novelty,
you know,
right? Yeah.
And that's the dopamine.
Yes.
And the thing, and one of the issues that we have is that because this little guy, remember the bubble that we were talking in the very beginning, because this little guy creates a fantastic universe for everybody. We have the release of dopamine super easily, and we get addicted to dopamine. We get addicted to feeling pleasure. We get addicted to that, you know. And once we don't have that, we're gonna miss this. And our students, remember some minutes ago, we also talked, we're going to have dark times ahead, but it will pass, blah, 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 blah. This is one of the things that we are going to face, because we are going to be there teaching language, teaching math, teaching biology, teaching whatever.
Exactly.
And at certain points,
stuff can be tough.
Exactly. Because our students are going to be like, okay, this is becoming super boring. That's why you guys have to be very attentive with the kind of attention you're going to require students activate. Because again, depending on the kind, if you want your students to make use of their sustained attention for a long time, I know it sounds super redundant, okay? But you understand, like sustained attention for a long time, because by saying sustained attention, you automatically understand for a long time. But anyway, so if you require students activate their sustained attention, then they are going to, as André said, the body is going to need dopamine.
Yes.
And they are not going to have their phones, and then they're going to be anxious. And then again, they are not going to sustain. It's not going to be sustained at all, even though the name, and I use the example of Ronald A. Cohen's book. The Neuropsychology of Attention from 2014. I don't remember the year, but anyway. And he mentions that and these examples. He doesn't talk about phones at all, but he talks about these
Yep.
examples of attention.
It was not
And
such a big problem back then, Today,
exactly. And the breaches. The thing is, we
yeah,
need to find, we need to spot the breaches, the weak points
yeah,
of each type of attention,
yeah,
because then we know which one we're going to require from our students, especially because now they are not going to have their phones. Is this going to mean that they are going to learn faster? Maybe not. But we are going
ah,
to maximize or potentialize learning because they are going to be focused on
yeah.
the class,
What they have to do,
on
which is
what they have to do.
yeah, exactly
We're going to remove this or
the
try to remove a
distractor. Yeah,
distractor,
yeah. And Rudy, I've been looking at some schools that actually took the first step, of
Mhm.
limiting, because we forget that the law is not completely banning the use of
Mhm.
phones. You can still use phones for pedagogical purposes, like Bia said. So you want to do some research on the phone, okay, go to the box or the locker, grab your phone, use your phone for 10 minutes, and then put it back.
Yeah.
Because then you have to do some focused attention work, and your
Yeah.
phone is not going to help with that. But with research, okay, there's also the case of accessibility. If you have, I don't know, dyslexia, and you need an immersive reader on the phone to help you or to read out loud or whatever, you can still use the phone. So
Mhm.
that's why we celebrate the law. It's not a total ban. However, if you look at some more hardcore researchers, they would
Yeah.
go for the whole complete full ban of the phone until the age of 14 or even 16, depending on the case, because through the phone, your kids, your teenagers, they will have access to stuff that they shouldn't have access to.
Mhm.
And because they don't have that inhibitory control well developed, and again, inhibitory control might be a very distant thing or difficult thing, and it doesn't work for everything the same. We can inhibit certain behaviors very easily, others not so easily. And you know what, depending on the day, depending on your mood, depending on the social context, that will influence your ability to inhibit certain things.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking in I'm oversimplifying, of course, but yeah, we all know that if you drink too much, you lose your inhibitory control. If you're under stress and people are making you mad, you lose your inhibitory control. So it depends on the context as well.
That's why
But
in English, you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I lost it,"
yeah, I lost it exactly,
because
right?
you lost your inhibitory
You lost
control.
it
It's simple as
because
that.
we are
And
emotional beings, right?
and
Yeah,
dude, I think it's important to make it clear here. All
yeah,
these things that we are saying, these are cognitive activities. Okay,
exactly. They are.
these are things that we do in our minds. We
Yes,
use our brains to make our minds work and do all these things. Okay, all
that's it.
these little things that we were talking about, inhibitory control.
Yeah,
This, we need our brain fully developed in order to enable a full-fledged inhibitory control.
exactly.
And the prefrontal frontal cortex, which is totally directly responsible for that, is the last area of the brain to be developed.
Oh yes,
It's the
right
last
here.
one.
Yes,
And this is going to happen at a later age of their teenage years.
yes.
So
Even
let's
even
say,
into adulthood, like research
yes,
shows that 25, 26, you're still developing your prefrontal cortex, but yeah, it's almost fully developed anyway,
you
right?
know,
In
that's
your
why, and
20s.
again,
Yeah.
that's why it's hard for them. It's hard for us. We have
Yeah.
several adults having a hard time understanding how to get rid of their phones in specific situations, in the
Yes,
movies, in the theater, in a meeting, during a lecture, you name it.
exactly.
And this is also very important. The parents. This
Haha,
is another
yes.
thing. This is another point that I think this law is going to nail it. You know, um, the parents sometimes. Well, what we normally see in kids
Yeah,
is a reflection of what's happening in their house. Normally,
exactly.
I don't know if you guys saw that I think it was a couple of weeks ago. We had Elon Musk's son participating in a very important briefing, and he said something to the current president of the United States of
Shut up.
America.
You're
Yeah,
not the president. Yeah.
he pretty much said what
What we
everybody
wanted to say.
what we wanted
Well
to
done.
say. That's pretty much what we wanted to say.
Yeah.
But everybody was saying, "Oh, he probably heard that at home, and he was repeating that," and that's true. Probably,
Yeah,
he
probably.
heard
Yeah.
that at school,
Yeah.
at home,
Somewhere.
and he was just
Yeah.
repeating that. Nobody said that his dad used to say that. Nobody was pointing fingers. But this is, it can be,
Yeah.
maybe it can be a nanny. It
Yeah.
could be his nanny. We don't know. But there's a
Probably,
big
yeah.
chance that he heard he heard that at home. And then kids are going to replicate this kind of behavior, verbal behavior and physical behavior. What's the
Yeah.
physical behavior? This.
Yeah.
But, and then of course, if they see their parents using their phones all the time, I know it's hard. I have a kid here. Sometimes we really want to use this, whether to work or to, get into our bubble so we can disconnect from reality for a brief moment. Yeah, I know it's tough, but I'm telling you, teachers, if you have a very good connection with parents,
Yeah.
tell them not to use their phones when they're with their kids. Tell them not to do that. And if it's mandatory that they use because they have to get a call from work, etc., 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 go to a separate room. Because if you do this all the time, your kid is going to replicate this behavior. And the thing
that's
is,
so important, man. Yeah.
and the thing is, they are not going to have access to it if they have phones.
Yes. Yeah.
I sincerely expect they don't until they're teenagers. But if they do,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're not going to have access to their phones in schools anymore. And because they don't know how to deal with this kind of loss yet, they are going to cry. They are going to, create a scene with teachers.
Rebel against the system.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
And then that's why you have to talk to parents. If you
Yes.
have your parents backing you up, and also schools, but parents as well. Once this happens, and school is going to call the parents are going to come, and they are not going to blame on you guys.
That's why, again, the law is important, because
Yeah.
there's a legal mechanism to protect teachers when teachers say, hey, you cannot use your phone now. It's the law, right? And also, as you said, Rudy, so we can move on to the book recommendations, because Bia is asking about one book, but you know what?
I'm writing right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know what? You folks, you have to remember that even though you have kids and you want to have access to your kids all the time because you're worried, and you have to remember that if you want your kid to pick up the phone or send a message to you during the lesson, during a class, what message are you sending your kid? Because again, they mimic, they replicate your behavior. If your messages stay on your phone all the time, because I might ask you something, and nowadays parents, they text message about, what do you want for lunch, in the middle of chemistry, that's not important, folks. What is important is that very complicated subject that the teacher is trying very hard to teach. And once you divert your attention for only 1 second, you miss that key word, then your thought is gone. There's nothing you can do to recover that.
Yeah.
So we have to teach kids that if you are in the class, you should be there to pay attention and to learn. And phones are not helping. They're doing the exact opposite, right? And that's why we have 2 books to talk about, right, Rudy?
Yes. So from now on, every episode, in the final minutes of every episode of Chá Pedagógico, we're going to bring books. Because to be very honest, there is nothing better than sipping a tea and reading a book. Right?
Exactly.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the books that we used to guide us through the developing of this episode, the development of this episode, is do you have there yours? Do you want to go first?
Here? Sure.
And while you separate, Geração Ansiosa,
We
This
have both
is
here.
what Andre is going to recommend.
This is huge, guys.
If you were interested in this book, go to Disal's website and type when you check out during checkout. You type SHA 25
25. I just put it in
CHA.
the chat. Yes.
Great.
To get a
CHA
discount.
25, and you're going to
Yeah.
get 25% off. And this
Yeah.
book, Andre, tell us about this book a little
Yeah.
bit.
This book is a best-selling book by an amazing author, Jonathan Haidt, who's an American psychologist, and it came out just last year. And I think Jonathan Haidt is probably the biggest advocate for banning phones until you become a teenager, and for very good reasons. Basically, he shows through a lot of research that we've never lived through a mental health crisis as today. I mean, seriously, folks, especially girls. Girls are committing suicide more often than not today
Yeah.
because of exposing themselves on social media, ridiculous body expectations.
Yes.
Because they see each other on Instagram, for example, and that messes with their head. And kids are accessing more than ever pornography, the dark web, to getting to dangerous and sometimes self-mutilating games that leads them to hurting themselves and others. So, and this is not trivial, this is real, this is happening. So basically, this book tells you all about, you need to know how to make sure your kids are not fragile but anti-fragile. That's a very cool concept in this book, because it tells kids are not like glasses or cups or porcelain or whatever. That
I didn't see it yet.
Yeah,
Mugs.
the mug. Yeah, kids are not like mugs. If you
We
drop
didn't
a
use
mug,
we didn't use this word yet.
but that's the thing. To wrap up, I think the message is, if you drop a mug, it breaks,
Yeah.
because it's made of porcelain or whatever, and then you have to buy another mug. So what we have to do when it comes to a mug, we have to avoid at all costs dropping the mug, right? Otherwise, we have to buy another mug, or we have to try to glue the pieces back together or whatever. But a kid is actually the opposite. What he says is, kids are not fragile, they are anti-fragile, which means that if a kid falls, even though they might get hurt, they might break an arm, but they will learn a very important lesson. They will learn their limits. They will learn self-regulation. And there is no other way for them to learn those things. They have to go out and get hurt and play, free play. And that's why you have to remember that even though you're trying to protect your kids at all costs, this is actually bad, because you're not allowing them to go for the things that make them become better as human beings, cognitively, emotionally, and test their limits, so they
Yes.
become more resilient.
Exactly.
That's the
And
idea.
the other book that we have here, Andre, do you have it with you?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
Nação
here.
Dopamina by
Yes.
Dr. Anna
Lemke.
Lemke.
That's her. Yeah.
Why am I recommending this book? Remember that we said in the beginning, actually, we said this throughout this entire episode, that we are becoming addicted to dopamine.
Yeah.
And that's true. And for instance, one of the problems that we have with TikTok, not only TikTok, with social media in general, the videos or the content, they are very short. And remember, we were talking about sustained attention. There are moments that sustained attention is important. Okay, guys, maybe not for a long time, but sustained attention is important. For instance, when you're reading a book, or when you are reading an article. And because these videos that we have in social media are super short, and they not that they pretty
Yeah.
much do the job, because they don't, but they satisfy the needs, our needs, or many people's needs. Then we're like, we have a release of dopamine, we feel satisfied, and we move on. But what we're doing, the same thing that the same way our body is
Yeah.
going to be used to this dopamine release, very frequent dopamine release. Our body is also, or our brain is going to be used to having very short attention spans. And this is very bad. This hinders, for example, when you assign a book to your students, this is going to hinder maybe their literacy, or maybe their critical thinking, because they are not
Exactly.
going to read a book. If you tell them to read maybe more than 2 pages, they're going to be like, oh, really? Do I have to read more than 2 pages for real?
Isn't
Sure.
there a video I can watch, teacher?
Yes, isn't there? And they're going to look for this
Right?
information. They're going to look up
Yeah.
on the web. They're going to find something extremely superficial with not a lot of content. And they're going to be satisfied, and then they're going to move on. And it doesn't happen only with kids, it's been happening to everybody, including adults. That's why I selected this book, Nação Dopamina. This is
Yeah.
essential. And both these books,
Yep.
they are on Gisal's website. It's really, really important that you get these books, because that's what's
Definitely.
happening now. Maybe 20 years in the future, we will have different books, more evolved books, because we're going to have an evolution of what's happening right now. But right now, these books are essential for you, teacher. Okay. And all you got to do during checkout, you type CHA25, SHA 25 to get 25% off
Yeah.
of these books.
Buy the
Right.
books and tell all your friends to buy the books. If they have kids, if they're teachers, if they're school managers, everybody buy the books. Okay.
Yes,
They are good books.
it's really, really, really important. Bottom line, dude. Bottom
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
is this law very important? Yes.
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 Yeah.
Super
Very
important.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Is this going
Yeah.
to hinder digital literacy? Not at all, because
No.
we said
No.
literacy or critical thinking is a cognitive activity or a cognitive skill, and we can develop this through using whatever tool. Whatever
Exactly.
tool.
Yeah.
Once they are critical thinkers, they are going to transfer this ability, because
And
it's a cognitive
and
activity, to whatever moment that
Yeah.
they are required to be critical thinkers.
And
Simple
you
as
know
that.
what? Plug and play, folks. Just remember this. A lot of people think, oh, if we don't teach kids to use phones, then no, they're plug and play. You give a phone to a kid, they will learn how to use it better than you in 2 hours. Okay,
Yeah.
it's you don't have to teach those things. Okay,
Yeah.
they're user
No,
friendly. Yeah,
forget it.
yeah,
Forget it.
yeah.
All right, guys. Very important. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. It's really important. The more people we have, the more you're going to help Shop Pedagogical get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like this episode. If you really like this episode, don't forget to click on the thumbs up, because you're going to tell YouTube that this is a good content, and then YouTube is
Exactly.
going to make this video reach more and more people. And
Even
then
if they have to watch on their phones, right? Well,
Yeah.
avoid it.
That's
But
fine.
well,
In this case, we're okay with you
we're
guys
okay.
using your
Yeah.
phones, okay?
Yeah.
But don't do it in front of a kid. Do it. No, I know
Yes.
sometimes it's hard. It's difficult,
Yeah.
but we can do this. It's possible. And then you guys don't have to do the other thing I'm going to ask you. If you know teachers, if you're part of a WhatsApp group of teachers, click on the link, share the link.
Yes.
Tell people, look, I stumbled on this podcast with André and Rudy. It's super cool. It's super nice. Maybe you can take a look at this. They can watch the recording of this podcast. That's fine.
Exactly.
And you're going to find here on Gisal's YouTube channel. If you click on the tab podcast, you're going to see previous episodes of Shop Pedagogical. So you can all watch.
There's a whole playlist.
Exactly. There's a playlist.
Yeah.
And again, you know the drill. Click on the thumbs up. It's really important. Make comments. You can use the comment section of every single episode. We receive a notification when you make a
Yes.
comment,
Yeah.
and we're going to address the comment as soon as we can. But please be nice, okay, guys? Be nice. When you make a comment, be nice. Be cool people, okay?
Yes.
We're nice people. I mean, Andre is a nice guy.
Be
I'm
nice.
not. I know I'm
Ask
not.
thought-provoking
Okay?
questions,
Be nice.
but
Yes,
in
exactly.
a nice way. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, you're cranky
Sometimes.
sometimes, Rudy, but that's
Many
good.
times. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Dude, sometimes.
another thing that's also very
sometimes you're
important,
cranky,
if you
but
really
yeah,
like Shop
I'm
Pedagogical,
getting
if you
there
really
too,
like the
man.
content,
Yeah.
and if you want to get access to more exclusive content, Shop Pedagogical has a members club on Patreon. Okay. So if you follow us on social media, follow Disal on social media, mainly on Instagram. It's Disal _ distribuidora de conhecimento. Follow André is the Learning Cosmos on Instagram, and my handle on Instagram is
Oh,
Macielo
yes.
Consultoria. And there you're going to have a link to this members club. You're going to find, and we have 3 different tiers. If you are okay with this, if you have financial conditions to help Chá Pedagógico get bigger, you can select one of the tiers. You're going to have access to exclusive blogs, exclusive videos, study group channels, because we do have a study group. And if you're okay, we're okay if you don't have right now, I know things
Yeah.
are very tough. That's okay. You can become a free member of the club. That's okay as well, because you're going to have access to some snippets, and you're still going to help the channel and the episodes
Most definitely.
increase and get bigger. And if you really want to have us in your school, just talk to us. Like, hey, I want to
Please.
have a live Chá Pedagógico here in my school.
For my
If you're a
staff, that would
principal,
be
for my
awesome, huh?
staff,
Yeah.
or if you work for a big company, just call us. And we have a Chá Pedagógico with you guys. We bring the tea. You don't even have to buy the tea. We bring the tea. We bring the tea. We bring the tea. Just talk to
That's
us.
right.
Right?
We would love to be there with you folks. Yeah, just let us know. Okay.
Exactly.
And I don't know if my connection or yours, but I feel like I'm freezing a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
And it started pouring a rain here, so I don't know. Maybe it's me. Yeah.
All right. And before we wrap
Okay.
up,
But that's it.
if you
folks.
guys,
Thank you so much.
yes, if you guys are
And did we
watching us in
forget
4K right now, yes, if you're watching
Yeah.
us in 4K right now, it's because we do have a team behind us. So I would like to thank Lydica. I would like to thank our big sis, Jessica, and now our little sis, Tamiris. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Tamiris is here.
Yes, today she's here with us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for everything.
Ladies,
yes. So if you guys, if you really
what
like,
would we do without them? Right?
nothing. They are the team behind us.
Yeah.
If you like the screens before waiting for the episode, if you like everything that you see on Instagram related to Chá Pedagógico, it's because of this team. This team is awesome. It's them. Thank you so much, guys. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. We see you in March. Is that correct? March?
Yes,
Yes,
March.
Right?
Last Sunday of
March
at 6 p.m.
6 p.m. here.
Time. Yes, and you know what? We'll be talking about something cool. Maybe we can ask you on social media which topic you prefer. How about that?
Yeah.
Follow us, check the poll, and then we'll decide what to talk about. Right, Rudy?
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Guys, dude, take care.